And then Moshe, do you want to ask your question?
In terms of CD5 and the social validation when something's popular, but what happens when you want to do when you do launch, you're launching to a targeted group, and you're using a strategy where you're building a community prior to your launch. So if your group, if the group you're launching to is a small niche group, how in your discovery, how do you install the CD5 of sort of social validation when, by definition, you don't have a lot of people using it?
I think that's actually possibly even easier if people identify that as a small niche group, and it's like, wow, only like I belong to this group because it's so rare, and I never imagined there's a group just for people like me. So, and this is a combination, but I'd say between CD 1, 5, and 6. That's scarce. Like it's a very exclusive. It's not abundant, right? It's just like very unique. Maybe CD 4 too. It's very personalized towards. It's really following identity, and then depending on why the community is formed, there's usually CD 1 when it's very specific. Because if we're saying it's not for other people, but just for you, there's usually a reason for that. It's often CD1. And so therefore you can actually relate and connect to people the most. And I talked about, if we float up to like higher level knowledge for CD5, it's not necessarily how many people that gives you social proof and social norming. It's how related you feel to that person. When I talk about social norming content, if you see, like I talk about, oh, look, if you see, hey, people similar to you are doing this, so you should do it too, right? I sometimes talk about this example, like, well, what don't people want to be different, right? Why, the science says, hey, if people are all doing this, you would do it too. But I thought we want to be unique and different and have more CD3. And so the answer here is that number one, it's, hey, yeah, for some things in our life, like let's say 2 to 5 things, we want more CD3. We want to stand out. We want to be different. We want to be unique. But for everything else, we try to, we just kind of do things because number one, we've always been doing it. Number two, people around us are doing it, right? So that's social norming. And I mentioned about the uncertainty, like when people are in a environment where they're very comfortable, then they try to be different. But when they're in environmental uncertainty, then they try to follow the social norm. But the third one is how much you can relate to that person. And like I said, some people are like, yeah, I'm different, I'm cool. Like let's say for me, it's like, oh, I see this website that says, oh, lots and lots of people are joining this website. It's a new craze. And I'm like, well, I'm different. I'm like, this doesn't work for me. I'm like a Taiwanese entrepreneur who grew up in the US and gamification consultant, graduated from UCLA, right? So I'm super cool. I'm different. I'm like, I'm not like these people, right? So I can feel elitist about this. But if I see this group that says, hey, did you know that 80% of Taiwanese entrepreneurs who grew up in the US, went to UCLA and do gamification, join this community? Like, oh yeah, that's me. I got to join that. Right. So the question is how much I can relate to that group. Like when it's so specific and so niche, I actually feel like I should be part of that group even more. And then a commercial example I give is, we did work on eBay before to help them improve the standards of the sellers, have them have high quality communication photos. And when we do the social norming, if you just say, hey, look, this is what the average seller is doing. They're uploading more than 4 photos. They're communicating within 24 hours. Some people would, again, not relate to some sellers that, well, of course they would be so professional and all this because these are like big ass like sellers on eBay. They have national campaigns and all that. So I'm just like a tiny furniture seller in Fremont, right? Small business. So these metrics don't apply to me. But if you say, hey, did you know that the average, 70% or the average furniture seller in Fremont that's, less than 10 employees, do these things? They're like, wow, of course I can't be below average for this group, right? Because I feel connected to this group. So I say when you are targeting a niche small group, I think it's actually easier to create that social norm. And as long as that's communicated, right? The worst is that people don't actually know it's created just for them, people like them. And when that's the case, they'll just look at the numbers like, oh, you don't have that many people, so maybe it's not interesting. So you want to communicate very strongly that it's not a big community, but it's all people. And oftentimes when that's the case, if people know it's vetted, then it actually becomes more valuable. It's like those those conferences that people pay $5,000 to attend. And part of it, yeah, like sure, there's gonna be good food there, maybe there's gonna be interesting programs, whatnot. But honestly, they're probably not worth that much money per person. But one thing is people know, like, yeah, if I go there, everyone else who showed up are people who paid $5,000, even though it's not necessarily worth it. So we vet out the people, I guess, in that scenario, we vet out the people who are not doing as financially successful in life. And so everyone I meet, even if it's just like 15 people there in this whole event, everyone I meet, I know it's people at a certain level. Whereas if I go to an event that's $100 and there's 10,000 people at the conference, like I'm gonna meet a lot of people who are just asking me to give them money and or invest in their company or whatnot, and I don't want to experience that. So I'd rather have less people, but I know the less people are all relevant, or even like not even the money examples, like, oh, I want to I want to sell my product at an event, right? And I know that I sell my product to head of PRs for companies, right? So if I go to a technology expo or a marketing expo, I'll meet a ton of people who are just irrelevant. Hey, you gotta click the next video. Your EXP isn't gonna collect itself. Well, actually, it would collect itself, but you should keep learning. Go to the next video.